Hello, sir.
We got to get the applause meter up, Charlie. That
Yeah,
applause really wasn't so great.
It's respectful applause.
You said, how are we doing so far? And I was the only one clapping.
Yes, that's true. Steve arrived at 3 a.m. this morning, so...
I actually got in at 3:30, so if I start mumbling or pass out, it's either from fatigue or something.
Or my terrible questions.
But I thought what might be great, just to kind of get the crowd riled up, is I brought a videotape. Can we watch it?
Can we watch a bit of telly?
Let's watch a videotape. Oh, come on, let's watch a videotape.
Let's watch a bit of television before we start off. It's your business. It better be good.
This is where we're going. This is the future.
I'm in the empire business.
I speak only with Elizabeth Keene.
Well, I'm here.
I'm gonna make you famous, Lizzie.
It really is him.
We have $1 million winner.
This is Jeopardy!
Very, very close game.
A three-way tie.
I've lost 100 pounds.
100 pounds!
We've sold $2.9 million worth of products.
I like you so much. What I'm going to do is...
Oh my goodness.
Everything I have done has led me to this moment. I wonder if Alicia Keys will come in here.
Jerry!
I was Abraham Lincoln today.
Nobody can waste time like you and me.
Say my name. Heisenberg.
I am scared.
Scared of what?
You.
Nothing stops this train. Nothing.
You are a time bomb. Tick, tick, ticking.
And the Emmy goes to Breaking Bad.
Cool. Well, a little round of applause for the team. Okay, excellent. Well, I introduced you as a true TV impresario. Do you think that's fair?
I'm not, no. The people that work at Sony in the production business are, but we have a great team. They're willing to take risks and try different things.
Yep.
And if you consider the fact that Breaking Bad, which is one of the great TV shows of all time, the people didn't want it originally. Some people called it the worst TV idea ever. And yet our guys hung in there and said this is something they wanted to produce and had a lot of passion for it. And I think that was the key. Well,
let's come on to Breaking Bad and the whole concept of risk in a minute. But the theme of the conference is agility.
Right.
And when you took the reins at Sony Pictures, it was regarded as a very risky move because the business didn't have traditional distribution channels. It didn't have a massive network. You looked at that as a positive
opportunity. No, it's interesting. When I first took the job, I remember Sir Howard Stringer said to me, he said, "Our business is screwed up. You better fix it. Good luck." And
it's a good brief, isn't it?
At the time, the big argument was there's no way we could be successful in the United States without having a broadcast network. Yeah. And it wasn't just the United States where that's a problem. So if you don't have a broadcast network, then you can't get shows on the air, you can't feed the international pipeline, you can't do all those things. I stupidly looked at it like an opportunity because I thought, we can go sell to everybody. So here we sit today where we, as you pointed out earlier, we have shows on 20 networks. And it's amazing. And so when people say, you don't have a network, I go, that's right, we don't. We have 20 networks. And not only is it great from a business standpoint, but from a creative standpoint, when people come to see us, they look at us and go, wow, that's a real opportunity to be working with you, because I'm not working and creating shows for just one. I can go pitch the world. So when an idea like Blacklist or Breaking Bad comes through, we get bidding wars going. We have a lot of great things happening.
And that's one of the reasons why we felt it was kind of interesting to bring you to Asia to talk to the audience, because your lack of that restraint allows you to do deals with some of these new platforms.
Right.
Netflix, Amazon, and obviously that speaks to a lot of what the brands are trying to achieve as well. So tell us a little bit about how the new dynamic is working out for your business and the new business models.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people, particularly in the United States, are afraid, not afraid, but a lot of the traditional production companies that have networks weren't doing business with Netflix. And I think a lot of people get into the kind of the position where they make their deals all the same way. And I think all of our deals are different, but we weren't afraid of being in business with the Netflix or Amazon. We actually encouraged it. Years ago, when we were building our business back up, we kind of burned it down to build it back up about 10 years ago. We were the first studio to get involved in doing scripted programming for basic cable networks in the United States. And now that doesn't seem like a big deal, but at the time it was. So, working with new platforms and creating new models is something that's all very interesting to us, and it's kind of who we are. And I think the one thing we did, which I think was groundbreaking, is years ago when our international sales team and our channels looked at programs made for cable, there was some skepticism in the international marketplace that the scripts weren't as good, the budgets weren't as big, the acting weren't as good. But I think the turning point was years ago we did Damages for FX, and Glenn Close starred in it. We had a great group of actors. And I think people realized at that time that basic cable shows, along with paid cable shows in the United States, were attracting the best writers, the best actors, and there's a lot of positives to it.
And then you have the phenomenon now of the box set, which 5 years ago, it's something that now people want. And that TV programs rival, in fact, surpass film now as a video art form.
I will tell you that, and believe me, I love going to the movies, and we're part of a motion picture studio. I would argue that the world has changed to the point where, people are going back and forth between TV and motion pictures very easily. And people you can do TV without feeling like you've kind of taken a step backwards. Look at who won the Academy Award this year for Best Actor. Matthew McConaughey stars in an HBO TV show. Bryan Cranston is now getting all the great scripts for motion pictures and did Breaking Bad. Vince Gilligan's a feature writer, Jerry Bruckheimer. So I do think around the world we're in the golden age of television, and there's some of the best product being produced that we've ever seen. I think with binge viewing, people will actually sit down and when they watch at home, they'll watch 2 and 3 episodes of TV at any given time, which is kind of the same time slot they took to watch a movie. The one other thing I'll say, and this isn't a plug for my parent company, Sony, which makes great TVs, but I do think that the experience, when I grew up as a kid, the television set was a little box that sat on the coffee table with lousy sound and black and white picture. Now, you can buy these TVs so cheap, and the sound is great, the picture is great. You're 15 feet from your bathroom, or you're 15 feet from your kitchen, and it makes for a great experience.
Does the whole script development and the whole ideation process of coming up with great shows, is that changing now in the light of multiple screens? Are you now and your teams, are they thinking more about how to transfer the content into mobile applications, how that can flow seamlessly into iPad? I mean, how is it changing the whole creative process?
I don't think it's really changing. I think it's all, when it really gets down to, it's about story and characters and just telling a great story, whether it's reality shows or scripted shows. I think the amazing thing to me is I was talking to Jerry Seinfeld about the new technology. He said what's great to him is the fact that it used to be people can sit in their living rooms and enjoy their shows, his show. Now they can reach into their pocket and watch a show on their phone.
Yep.
And they can go to their pad and watch a show. So I don't think the creative is changing as much as the way we consume it. As far as I'm concerned, the more ways people can consume it, in a way that's allowed to be measured, and the average, for example, as long as, for the United States, for example, where TV everywhere is starting to populate the country, as long as it's authenticated and we can measure it, we can make it valuable to advertisers, then I think so. I think it's great.
In terms of the way you're making money, obviously that's changing. There was a rumor that with Breaking Bad, Jeffrey Katzenberg had offered something like $70 million for the last 2 shows of the last series.
Yeah.
You didn't take his money?
No, he called me up and actually said, I think we can make $100 million doing these final episodes, or after the show airs, doing small pieces. I can't remember if it said mobile, whatever. I said, well, 2 things. One, you obviously, this is a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the final episode, I said, it won't make sense. I said, secondly, we've already pre-sold the sequel, prequel around the world with Better Call Saul. So, and I said, I also think Breaking Bad needs to be told in longer form, not shorter form. But to be honest, he did not offer me that amount. He said he thought we could make that amount.
Ah, okay.
The other thing which is interesting, he had no rights to it. So I said, why are you calling me, telling me this? Because you have nothing to do with it.
Right.
So,
okay.
Conversation ended quickly.
That's Hollywood for you.
It is Hollywood.
Okay, so we talked a little earlier about globalization, and obviously that's the shareability of content is hitting all of our markets.
Right.
You have a lot to say about piracy, and there's a very interesting aspect to content now. If somebody can tweet out the ending of Downton Abbey or the ending of Breaking Bad, and yet that fantastic piece of content hasn't been seen in one part of the world, then suddenly social media can trump your whole purpose, your whole content.
Right.
And that's obviously perpetuating the desire for piracy. People want to get things earlier. What's your attitude on that?
I'm now a huge advocate in fighting piracy. Not a surprise, but I don't think TV really was on the forefront. Everybody talked about motion pictures, and for whatever reason, TV didn't get a lot of publicity on this. When we were doing the finale of Breaking Bad, which had this great ending, I pulled my team in. I said, I want to make sure this final episode doesn't get out. So I said, walk me through what happens from the time we finalize that last episode to the time it airs in the United States, and then how's it get out around the world. And what you realize is when you get a finished copy in the United States, thousands of people around the world are touching it, whether it's people who are doing the dubbing, all the prints around the world, they're doing the subtitling, everything. It's everywhere. And that finale was so huge, it wouldn't have taken much for somebody to write somebody a check, and it gets out on the internet, and we're dead. So then we started talking about how piracy, really is a problem, particularly in Spain and Australia and a bunch of places. So we came up with a couple ideas. And the biggest one was the idea that I think you can't blame the people who are involved in the pirates, because once you start blaming them, then they just come after you harder. So we said, what are some business solutions? And I think the easiest one we came up with was really try to go day and date as much as possible around the world. And that way, I think the way you can really kind of quell piracy is by offering it to the consumer as soon as close to U.S. air date as possible. And people know in Spain or in Russia or in China that they're going to get it soon after it airs in the U.S., and hopefully they're not as interested in putting the work in, because literally a clean dubbed copy can get out around the world within 48 hours after it airs in the United States. So we think that's a solution. The other thing that's just encouraging is the explosion of free video on demand, or AVOD, in China. Because, that to me, it's, China's going to be the second largest ad market pretty soon, if it already isn't.
And AVOD is advertiser-supported
video on demand. So there's no subscription fee. It's free to the consumer, supported by advertising. But it's taking off in China, and subscription video on demand is taking off in Japan, for example. But, those kinds of places where we haven't had a lot of success selling all of our scripted programming to linear channels.
Yeah.
If it is made available on demand, close to U.S. air date.
So you think
I think that in a way will help us beat piracy in some of those territories.
So you think the advertisers themselves are actually part of the solution?
It seems like. If in China if we're disturbing the pirates by, making the programming available to these advertiser-supported video on demand services and offered up pretty close to U.S. air date within a week or so,
Yeah.
I think that would have an effect. The interesting thing is it's not just two. I mean, it's a lot of work because it's a conscious effort on the part of the studio to do this. Because if in order to do the dubbing in advance, whatever, you have to move all your production schedules up and
absolutely.
get it done and really make sure you're protecting your content. But it's a huge deal. And again, we're not going to get anywhere saying, oh, the pirates are bad guys. We have to come up with real business solutions to solve the problem. But it's encouraging that what's solving it in a lot of places is some of this new technology.
You touched on China. Let's talk a little bit about international expansion. You've got some really interesting projects on the go. You've got a Russian version of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Right.
You're now refilming a version of Breaking Bad for the Latin American marketplace. What's happening in Asia? How are you going to try and take some of these big format shows and make them relevant to the Asian marketplace?
I think the same way we've done around the world. I mean, we've had a lot of great success, in countries around the world, taking scripted formats and producing them in local languages.
Yep.
And like I said, you mentioned Breaking Bad. We're doing Breaking Bad out of Latin America with our Colombian business partner Teleset. We've had great success in Russia with Married with Children, The Nanny, a lot of our great formats. But I think, so when you think of original, or you think of formats, I should say, it's not just game shows and reality, it's also scripted shows. Because again, a lot of these shows, characters and story transfer very nicely to around the world. And I think, a lot of our folks are here from our channels here in Asia. And, the hope is we work very closely with them, with our production business, works with our channels business, to create either new unscripted formats or work with some of our scripted programming and adapt it to local language.
Could you see Breaking Bad working in the Asian marketplace with?
I think Breaking Bad is such a great story; it can work anywhere in the world.
Okay. Are there
We just
plans?
can't hurt the mothership. Wherever we've sold it,
Right.
make sure we take as much out of that as we possibly
Could
can.
you see doing something like you're doing in Latin America with that version
Maybe
here in this market?
maybe one day.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch upon risk in this conversation because another thing that you seem to have been at the forefront of, again, it pins back to our agility theme,
Right.
is not necessarily going for pilots anymore and commissioning your content straight to series,
Right.
which sounds, fairly radical given the conservative nature.
Radical, yet it makes a lot of sense.
So explain a little bit to the audience here
Sure.
about what that actually means.
So typically, the process for creating program or working with channels on programs is you produce a pilot, the channels look at it, they produce a number of pilots and they determine which ones get picked up. I don't want to say I hated it because in some cases it's necessary because you need to look at how the characters are being developed, whether the script actually works, those kind of things. In some cases though, it makes no sense to produce a pilot because you go, okay, we have great actors, we have a great idea, we have the right team. Why are we going to go waste, in some cases, $12 to $14 million to do research and development when you know it's going to work? So, for example, we're doing Outlander based on the books for Starz, which is a U.S. network. And we have Ron Moore, who was involved in Battlestar Galactica. The story's been told. It's a great, big production. So we just said, let's just start a writer's room. Let's pour our efforts into making a great series.
Right.
And we did that. Better Call Saul, which is the Breaking Bad spinoff. I mean, do you really need to do a pilot? It makes no sense. So there's just a lot of cases, and we're also doing Vince Gilligan, who wrote Breaking Bad, had a script, Battle Creek, which he wrote years ago, which we're now doing for CBS, which is being written by David Shore, who did House.
Right.
And it was Vince's original script. So you have two of the most prolific writers of this generation involved in the script on the best U.S. network. So why waste the money and why just focus on making a great series? So look, it's great to do some of the shows that way. And I think with Netflix in particular, a lot of these shows are going straight to series.
Yeah.
But it's not for everything, but it's in some cases, I think it's a very, very smart approach.
A lot of content owners will often use some of the digital channels to trial, almost like a pilot.
Right.
Often that means that a digital viewer is going to be a bit shortchanged because they're seeing trial, they're not seeing content that's been, matured. Do you see that?
You know, we go back and forth on this. So we think it's actually an insult to digital platforms to say, well, we're creating it for digital, and if it's any good, we're going to take it to a real channel. You know, Jerry Seinfeld in the United States is one of the most prolific comedy writers and actors of his generation, and he wanted to do something for Crackle, which is our online entertainment site. And with the idea being it was just going to be for that. So people kept calling him up saying, let's do it, let's go do a normal show. He goes, no, I wanted to do this. And what he loved about it was he's unconstrained by timelines, and it's like, however long it is, that's how long it's going to be. And the other beauty of that piece for Jerry is we've got product integration with an advertiser, and it just all works great. But I think sometimes, you know, it's you know, you got to match horses for courses.
Yep.
And the beauty of some of these digital platforms is the fact you can be a little freewheeling and do your own thing and not, you know, have the time constraints of a traditional network.
Now you're working, and we're pushed. You've mentioned timelines. We're getting pushed for time too. But you mentioned that you're increasingly working with some brands. You've got big deals with Fiat, working globally on some of the products. What advice would you give to the brands here and the media guys that are trying to come up with content and big stories?
This may be an unpopular comment. I started in ad sales 35 years ago in the business, so I kind of get it. But we try, like we do a lot of product integration with Crackle, which again is our online site. And I think we find we work with the actual clients and hear what their needs are and how we can actually feel very organic and how we bring brands in the show so it doesn't feel like, you know, we're Simon Cowell holding up a Coke can. We're actually doing something that feels really natural to the program. But we also recognize we have to, you know, hit the goals of the advertiser.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of times you just need to, you know, need the producers to sit with the actual brands and have all the other people with them, but let the people who are really close to the product and both the content and the brand to really.
And does that happen
hash it
often
out.
enough? Do you think?
It does happen with us with our Crackle guys. Yes.
Right.
It's. You know, I love hearing the stories about the Bond movies, where they like there's that whole bake-off where they figure out what the Bond car is. It's really cool because no one thinks of the Bond car as being product integration.
Yeah.
It's just the Bond car, and it's the coolest, hippest car that they use, but you know, it feels very natural to what the movie's all about. So.
Okay. And final question: what do you think in terms of where Asia's going to be in your business? What percentage of revenues do you see Asia being in 5 years' time?
It's a big piece. I mean, our channels piece is a big growing piece of that. So we see that. There's some opportunities we're exploring now in Vietnam and some other parts of Asia. India, obviously, and Australia are big in the region as well. Look, we are a growing television business, and our channels business is getting bigger. I think our distribution business here in Asia is going to get bigger with the growth of SVOD and AVOD in the territory. And production-wise, we have not really tapped into what we can do here. So there's big upside here in Asia as far as what we can do on the original programming side.
Excellent. Okay. We've been pushed for time, but as we've hopefully proved, and your shows always prove, you can do a lot in 24 minutes.
Thank you for having me. I really
It's been an absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Mosko, the man with the firmest handshake in media.